Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this 68th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests on this episode include singer and songwriter Josh Kelley. We'll be talking about his new album that's available today. We'll also talk with sports agent Chad Speck about the NFL draft coming up next Thursday. We'll also talk with psychic Michael Bodine about his books, Growing Up Psychic, From Skeptic to Believer, and A Psychic's Life, What It's Really Like. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, drop a like, comment, leave some feedback, check out the shop, and share with your friends. Well, here is just what everyone was hoping for, another reason to do some outdoor dining, right? Well, today is National Picnic Day, and according to a new survey, 94% of Americans say they like picnics. Now, 5% of people say they don't like picnics, and 1% said that they hate them. Now, the most popular places to have a picnic are a park, by a lake, on a hill, at the beach, and in the backyard. And people's favorite picnic foods are sandwiches, fried chicken, watermelon, potato salad, chips and dip, deviled eggs, pasta salad, fruit salad, pie, and baked beans. The NFL Draft coming up next week. We've got pro sports agent Chad Speck on with us. And first off, Chad, I appreciate you taking some time. Talk about the draft, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. I appreciate you having me on.
Now, obviously, last year things were different. This year things still remaining different. But Chad, have things opened up maybe just a little bit for this coming draft?
Well, it certainly opened up more so than what we were dealing with this time last year. It was kind of chaotic this time last year because, everything shut down really right in the middle of the draft process, right in the middle of, everybody preparing for the draft. Some players got to do their pro days, some players didn't. And then, of course, the entire draft, was virtual, and we saw all these crazy, elaborate setups that some general managers and teams, set up in their homes. And so it was pretty wild. And then this year, obviously, the draft's in person. It was still different in the sense that, we didn't have the NFL Combine. We got through the Combine last year, but we didn't have the NFL Combine this year. We didn't have most of the All-Star games except the Senior Bowl. And we were able to do traditional pro days, but we didn't see all the private workouts and team visits that players can do. And so it's been very different in that sense. It's been hard for teams to gather the medical information that they typically like to get. And so we're still not back to normal, but in some ways, we're more open than we were last year.
Now, Chad, as the season was also truncated in different, separate fall and spring seasons, do you think that maybe there's going to be some players that slipped through the cracks that maybe would have been seen by more eyes in a different season?
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's any question. I think you're going to see some real discrepancies in who the best scouting teams are in the league this year. The draft pool is smaller, because the NCAA allowed the additional year of eligibility. So you have a lot of draft eligible players, that are still on campus. That doesn't really affect the top end of the draft, but it certainly affects the depth when you talk about late rounds and undrafted free agency. And, so you didn't have the small school all-star games. You didn't have the lower level all-star games where a lot of these small school players can get into. You didn't have the NFL Combine, which invites, over 300 prospects every year. And so yeah, I don't think there's any question that you're going to have some players, slip through the cracks. And it'll be interesting to see if you have a greater number of undrafted free agents and late round picks, ultimately, make teams somewhere and have a good career.
Now, do you have any personal picks that you see going first round that may be a surprise for some other folks?
No, not this year. I mean, in terms of players that I represent, not this year. I've had several first rounders in the past. I mean, our guy this year is going to be Jacoby Stevens, the safety out of LSU. And he's going to be probably, third, fourth round, give or take a little bit, good player. But as far as the first round, overall, I think, I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific player, but my guess is you're going to see a lot of surprises. typically what happens this time of year is the media will catch up to where teams had players graded all along. I mean, you hear a lot of, oh, so-and-so's flying up the draft board. You know, you might turn on NFL Network and you hear that. And no, I mean, nobody's really flying up draft boards right now. It's really just the media kind of catching up to where teams really had a player graded, you know, for the most part all along. And so, but I bet you if you went into if you were able to go into all 32 NFL draft rooms right now, the players that they have graded as first-round picks would be very different from team to team.
Now, Chad, for you, what do you think is the biggest misconception of the sports agent and team management relationship, pre-draft, if you will, leading up to the days coming up next Thursday?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, is what people think, the money that we make. You know, a lot of people think we, you know, work 10, 15, even 20%. I mean, we're maxed out in the NFL at 3% of the player's contract. And most of the time, you're going to have at least $40,000 of investment in a player before they're ever even drafted. So that's a misconception. I think a lot of people think, you know, the agents are, you know, for whatever reason, are making almost as much as the players, but that's not the case. And then the level of control, you know, that we have is something, you know, I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, an agent can just, you know, wheel and deal and get a team interested in you, even if that team's not interested in you. And that's not the case. I mean, these NFL teams, they pay the owners pay their scouting department, you know, a whole lot of money to scout these players. And if that team's got a player graded as a fourth-round pick, I mean, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do, you know, to convince them that he's a first-round pick. I mean, you know, and so I think there's a misconception in terms of, you know, being able to get a player drafted higher than someone else. I mean, our job pre-draft is really to prepare the player for the process, and that can have a huge impact on where they're drafted. But we got to make sure that they are prepared for every step of the way, and that they're able to put their best foot forward when they get an opportunity to get in front of these decision makers, the guys that can actually draft them.
And as an agent, what are your words of advice to said player the week leading up to the draft?
Just relax and try to enjoy it and realize that, you know, you're not in control, and you just got to trust. And my faith's important to me. I tell guys all the time, man, just trust God. He's got a place picked out for you, and you know you've done the work, and the hay's in the barn, so to speak, and just understand that this is just the beginning. It's not the end. I mean, so much is put on the draft, and there's so much pressure on these players leading up to the draft. I mean, you know, sometimes it almost feels like, you know, the draft is the end, but it's really just the beginning, and it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish, and there's all kind of examples out there like Tom Brady that prove that to be true, and so just, you know, understand you've done the work, and when you get drafted, you know, then it's really time to go to work, and so just, you know, try to focus on the things that you can control and let the things that you can't control go, and just understand that it's a huge blessing to go in the draft, you know, regardless of where you go.
That's right. Now, Chad, if folks have any questions, would like more information, I wanted to make sure and let folks know not only where they can keep up with social media, but also the A3 website as well.
Yeah, we're a3athletics.com. That's the number 3athletics.com. And there's links to all our social media there. I'm at A3Chad on Twitter, and CSpec31 on Instagram, and we try to keep everybody up to speed with what's going on with our players, and so you can find all that information there.
All right. Well, Chad, it's been great to visit with you this morning. I hope you have a great weekend and a successful draft next week as well.
Okay, Cameron. Thank you very much.
Want to say thanks to our sponsor for today's episode, Smiley's Breezy Vapes, located at 313 Falcon Road in Altus, Oklahoma. They've got red basket specials all the time, a large selection of disposable flavors, the largest in Southwest Oklahoma. And if you need new hardware, they not only have it, but they can explain it to you how it needs to be used. If you have any questions, you can give them a call or send a text at 580-471-VAPE. Now, we've all had that moment where we get woken up by a strange noise in our house, but how do we respond? Yeah, it's not always a profile in courage, am I right? Well, a new survey asked people what they do after they hear a strange noise in the night, and here are our top 6 ways to handle it. Number 1, wait to do anything unless you hear another noise. Number 2, get out of bed to investigate. Number 3, wait to see if the dog barks. Number 4, make your significant other get out of bed to investigate. Number 5, check the security system. And number 6, immediately grab something nearby to use as a weapon. Now, the survey also found 19% of people immediately believe a noise is a burglar, and 13% immediately believe it's a ghost. Now, earlier this year, there was some intergenerational warfare, and for once, it wasn't the standard everyone versus boomers. Now, Gen Z started making fun of millennials for being out of style, specifically with how much they love skinny jeans and how they part their hair. So a new survey tried to settle the debate by asking people across 4 different generations what is and isn't in style. First off, the survey asked people if they think they're fashionable, and overall, only 41% said yes. 55% of millennials, 46% of Gen Z, 38% of Gen X, and 29% of boomers. Now let's talk about some specific styles. Number 1, the right way to part your hair. Now, millennials and Gen Z both think that parting your hair in the middle and parting your hair on the side are both in style. Now, as people get older, they really don't like the middle part and only think the side part is in style. Number 2, bucket hats. Are 90s bucket hats back? Well, 36% of both Gen Z and millennials say they are. Only 15% of Gen X and 9% of boomers agree. Number 3, fanny packs. 33% of millennials say they're cool, and so do 29% of Gen Z. Gen X and boomers, much less likely to be into fanny packs. And number 4, skinny jeans. And finally, 54% of millennials say skinny jeans are fashionable. So do 48% of Gen Z, 46% of Gen X, and 46% of boomers. So really, skinny jeans seems to get the most support across all generations. Like I mentioned to him before we came on, it's been a minute since we visited last, but a new single and a new full album available now. Josh Kelley, singer and songwriter, on the line. Josh, good to visit with you again, my friend.
You too. It's been a while, brother.
Now, Josh, how much different is the landscape for music today as opposed to anything you've ever put out before?
Well, I mean, I think I was probably one of the first people to ever get signed because of the internet. So I've always really embraced, what it can do for me, but what it can do for artists who are looking for a platform or looking for an audience. And so, I mean, I've fully embraced it ever since the beginning. And, I've put out, since that first song you played, Amazing, back in the early 2000s, I've put out probably 12 albums. And really been able to grow my fan base, and honestly, man, it's been great. It's not easy to stay, at the front of the line in the game, but if you work hard enough, and I feel like that's one of my strengths is working hard and working smart. Luckily we've sort of stayed there, which has been great.
Now, for you, Josh, has the songwriting, being a songwriter, how has that been over those last 12 months? Has it been easier? Has it been maybe tougher for you?
Man, it has been great for me because, we raise our family up here in Utah, and we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so since 2012, I've just been writing by myself. And now because of the pandemic and Zoom, I'm writing 3 times a week with people in different countries, everywhere. And it's actually been really great for me. I have a feeling I'm going to be a co-writer on maybe like every 5th album that comes out in 2020. 2022, I have been burning the candle at both ends, man. It has been fun for me.
Now, Josh, what has been the biggest challenge of this last year? Like you said, you were one of the early ones picked up because of the internet. What technology have you had to learn a little bit more of this last year?
Well, I had to really learn how to be able to play live shows for my fans over the internet, and I
I didn't want it to be just the microphone that's on my iPhone. So what I did is I took about a week and I researched how to really create like a great online broadcast system. So I downloaded OBS. I got 3 different cameras, and I switched them with my feet, and it's hilarious. And then my studio, my recording studio where I record all my stuff, I have it piped in so that it sounds like a record, it sounds like. So yeah, when people are watching my live shows online, they're legit. And I really, really put the time in to make it an experience. But I will be honest with you, my tour has been moved to October, and I am ready to be in front of like real, tangible people, guys.
Now, tell our listeners about the new album, the new single, and how excited you are to have that the new music out today.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I mean, this was a total fan-based experience. I asked my fans on social media, what songs do you want me to do? I'm going to do an acoustic record. Basically, it's a tip of the hat to the old school MTV Unplugged days. And so they sent in their requests, and I basically just sort of picked them off one day at a time. I think I narrowed it down to 10 songs, and I think this album took me, because I record every day, so my process is, the workflow is fast. And I think this record took me about 2 weeks to record, and then took me about a week to mix it and master it, and here it is, I love my job. Yeah.
What's the hardest part of the process for you? Is it the songwriting, the recording, or the editing and mastering and saying it's done?
There's two parts that are the hardest. The hardest is really nailing down the tempo, the beats per minute, because that actually changes the way the song feels. If it's too fast, it doesn't come off right. It has to have that great natural feel. So when I finally settle on the tempo, which takes me a while, then I just kind of I'll start maybe recording the acoustic guitar piano first, and then I'll start layering things in after that. And really, my scratch vocals come kind of around the middle, and then I put more instruments on or less, whatever, and then I beat my scratch vocals later. I re-sing it later. But the real hardest part, guys, is the mixing. Yeah. I swear it's a dark art. It is. I probably mixed this record. My kids are in the car with me right now, and they had to listen to every mix probably 20 times. And, it takes a while to really know when you've got it right. And then when you nail it, it's like putting the everlasting gobstopper out on the Willy Wonka tray. It's like it's there for life now.
Awesome. Now, Josh, you talked about the shows coming back in October. What is the thing that you look forward to the most? Is there, in your day-to-day, is there anything, memories kind of stuff that really brings you back to those days?
Well, to me, it's like I love taking people on an emotional roller coaster, and we've learned over the years now that the acoustic show actually moves the needle more than the full band show. And I think it's because I'm so much more my authentic self, and people are smart. They know when you're full of doo-doo. So we've really sort of just kind of honed in on that show, and I miss that being able to watch people go, being able to watch people laugh and then 5 minutes later cry. Yeah. And being a part of that is like I like to turn my audience into a family. And it's really hard to do that online because, the little subtle things that happen in the live show, they just don't translate over the internet,
That's right. Now, Josh, if folks want to find out more information, pick up the album, pick up any of the single, any of your other information, plus tour dates, where's the best place for folks to catch all that info?
Honestly, joshkelley.com, it's kind of the perfect place. It's like a portal it'll send you everywhere, so if you're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, whatever, just go there. And then if you're looking for tour dates, go there. And then the new single, the gospel song, "Hold Me, My Lord." I think that video is featured on joshkelley.com if you're looking for a good cry. So yeah, I think I would send people there first, and then from there you'll just kind of spread out.
Well, Josh, it's been great to catch back up with you this morning, brother. I hope you have a great weekend, and we can catch up again real soon.
Absolutely. I'll be seeing you soon, hopefully in person. Thanks, brother.
Thanks again to our sponsor for this podcast, Smiley's Breezy Vapes, located at 313 Falcon Road in Altus. You can check them out on Facebook or at their website, smileysbreezyvapes.com. If you ever have a question or a comment, you can call or text at 580-471-VAPE. That's 580-471-8273. Now, we've all heard about spring cleaning your house, but this might be even more necessary. It's an easy guide for spring cleaning your digital life. Number 1, your browser. It can store lots of info like your browsing history, your favorite websites, and your passwords. And it's good to go through it every once in a while to delete cookies and make sure everything is up to date. Number 2, your smartphone. If you don't regularly clean out your phone's call logs, search history, and text messages, there can be a lot of clutter slowing down your device. Number 3, your apps. You should scan your phone or tablet's app list a couple of times a year and delete anything you're no longer using. It could improve your device's speed and battery life, plus those old apps might be secretly collecting data on you. Number 4, old accounts you don't use anymore. Instead of just abandoning old accounts you no longer use, you should go in and actually delete each one. That way, there's less of a risk to you if the company's data ever gets breached. And number 5, your photos. Now, we all have a million pictures clogging up our phones and computers. It's worth it to spend some time organizing them and deleting any duplicates. Now, there's even a program called Remo Duplicate Photos Remover that can help you do it. Now, we've got the big post-vax summer coming up, and apparently there's going to mean a lot of full frontal nudity. A bathing suit company called Pour Moi just released a new guide to topless and nude sunbathing in the U.S., where they broke down the rules in all 50 states. They found there are 4 states where basically all public nudity is off the table: Utah, Indiana, Tennessee, and South Carolina. There are another 11 states where some nudity is probably okay, but still might get you into trouble, so you've got to be careful. For example, Maryland, quote, "The laws are unclear regarding toplessness. However, a popular beach in Baltimore has banned females from going topless, and a federal judge upheld the ban in 2020. And in the other 35 states, the laws can range from designated nudist areas to pretty much anything goes. You can check out a map of that on pourmoi.co.uk. Our final guest on the podcast today, and this is actually my introduction to him as well, so you're going to get introduced to him as I do as well. Michael Bodine on the line, and first off, Michael, I appreciate you taking some time to be on the show.
I appreciate you asking me. I think it's really nice that you asked me. I mean, you're alive. I talk to dead people most of the day, so it's nice to talk to somebody with skin.
Now, let's delve in a little bit. You have a couple of books that kind of tell the story a little bit, Growing Up Psychic and A Psychic's Life. And right. Michael, when did you know that you had a gift, a special talent, if you will?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It wasn't so. When I was 7, we started having weird stuff happen around the house. Like, I grew up in this nice middle-class house, it was freshly built. It wasn't like built on a burial ground or anything like that. I was the youngest of 4 kids. It was my dad worked, my mom stayed at home, and we were all sitting around eating dinner. And my brother, who was he was 14. He was learning how to play the drums, and he was a very serious, teenager kind of guy, And he was downstairs and he was playing the drums, and he sucked because he was just learning. So we were listening to that, and it ting, ting, ting. And all of a sudden it sounded really kind of good, a little tight. And we thought maybe either put one of those records, how to play the drums by kind of thing, or he just started getting better. But it lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden we hear the cymbals getting knocked down and the door slamming open, and he comes running upstairs. And in my house, my father was one of those guys that, didn't think that men should show fear. They should show very little emotion anyway, but fear was certainly the last thing that they show. And my brother certainly never showed fear. I was the more of a spazzy kid. I didn't really care too much about all that, but my brother certainly subscribed to that thinking. And I'd never seen him scared before, but when he came upstairs, he was scared to death. He was like pale, and I'd never seen him like that. It was like, whoa, what'd you do? And then he didn't want to talk about it. He just refused to talk about it. So we were kind of like, well, what's going on? What's going on? My dad's yelling at him. And he finally, my mom got him to let us know what was happening. And he said that he was downstairs, he was playing the drums, and this like ghost guy comes through the wall and parks himself in front of the drums and him. And, when he's telling the story, we're all looking at each other like, yeah, whatever. But he says, so he puts his head down and he's playing, and that's when he sounded really good because, he was just freaked out. And then he finally got the courage to ask whatever this was to please leave. And it did. And then that's when he came flying upstairs. And, at the time when he's telling us the story, none of us believed in that kind of stuff. And we didn't really think he was telling the truth, but there was this really weird, like, feeling in the air. It was like somebody was watching, and I don't know, I have an imagination like Walt Disney, but it felt like something weird was going on. Okay. So a week later, we're all sitting around eating dinner again. And we had this lazy, and this time with my brother, cause he wouldn't go downstairs alone. And this salt shaker gets up, and we're all talking, and the salt shaker gets up and it moves across the table. I don't know how to describe it, because it wasn't like there was organs playing in the background or there was, a narrator in the back. It was just this thing. It was moving, and we're looking at it like, what? Really? And my brother, we had been giving him so much crap about, hey, why don't you invite your friend over for dinner? And hey, how's your friend? And blah, blah, blah. So we figured that he had hooked up some sort of pulley system or something, but he didn't. And it drops between my mother and my father. And so when it dropped, we all just went, whoa, what was that? And he's like, see, I told you, there's something in this house. There's something in this house. And my dad's like, yeah, but don't be doing that stuff now. Come on, you're scaring everybody. Enough of this crap. He got really mad. But he felt, my brother felt like vindicated in some ways. And then, stuff just kept happening. Not to everybody. Sometimes individuals, sometimes to a couple of us, but like lights would go on and off, and you could kind of chalk it up to, whatever, a storm or something, or you'd hear somebody behind you and turn around, there'd be nobody there, or somebody would tap you and you'd turn around or pull your hair. Sometimes you'd open up the cupboard to the cereal or something, and it would just kind of slide out in your hand. And it was all stuff that, you think about it and you think that's weird, but you don't attribute it to ghosts or anything like that. You just think, wow, I wonder how that happened, or geez, whoever put that in must have put it in a weird spot or something. But it just kept happening. And my mom was like I said, a stay-at-home mom. And so she decided, because she was, experiencing a lot of this stuff, she decided to go to our minister, who was a young guy, kind of a hip guy. We went to a Baptist church. My mother was raised Catholic, but she went to this Baptist. We all went to this Baptist church, and he said that, I think what you got here is a female problem. I think you need to go see a gynecologist, because it's obviously she's having some sort of female thing going on. And she didn't really believe that, because it happened to all of us. But so she went to the gynecologist, and the gynecologist says, no, I think you got some mental issues here. And so she went to a psychiatrist. She went to all these different people, and they were all kind of like, well, maybe we could put you on some this or put you on some of that. And it didn't seem to fit with my mom, And finally, she found this lady that she was a psychologist named Mrs. Roop, and she worked out of a trailer. I mean, she was kind of on the edge, and she said to my mom, well, no, it sounds like you got some spirit stuff going on there. You should probably talk to a medium. And, and back then psychics were considered like mentally ill. This is like in the 60s and stuff. And they were, you don't want to go to a psychic. You just don't want to do that. And certainly not a medium, whatever that was. And so my mom was a little hesitant, but Mrs. Roop was like, hey, I don't think you're crazy. I just think you have I think you have some some stuff going on, and this lady will help. And we lived in Minneapolis, and this lady lived in St. Paul. So my mom took her number, and she came home. And like I said, my mom was raised Catholic, and up till this day, I did not know this, but she used to collect Bibles. And I don't know, she liked Bibles for whatever reason. And when she got home, all her Bibles were stacked up on her bed in kind of a weird way. And it kind of freaked her out a little bit. But she thought it was one of us kids, because when I got home from school, I got yelled at for it. And I didn't even know she had Bibles. But, she told every one of us when we came home from school, don't screw with the Bibles. With all this weird stuff going on, just don't do that. And we were all like, what? We didn't even know you had Bibles. But so she put them all away, and she came down and made us dinner. And she went upstairs to grab something, and she screamed. And we were all ran up there. My dad wasn't in town. He was out of town. And there were the Bibles stacked up on the bed again. Wow. And it was this weird, it was a weird thing. It was, again, that weird feeling like somebody's kind of watching. So when the Bibles thing happened, my mom just said, oh, geez, I better call this lady. And so she called her name was Mrs. Olson. And Mrs. Olson knew, of course she knew, she knew all the stuff about us, and recommended that she come in for a reading. And Mrs. Olson was like a traditionalist psychic. The old fashioned, old school psychics, it was very ceremonial. It was very, very quiet, and you gave water to spirit. You came and you prayed, a lot of praying. And so my mom, and she asked if she'd bring my sister Echo, who's also psychic, and she was older. She's my older sister. She's the oldest of all four of us. And so they both went, and they got this reading, and it seemed to resonate really strong with my mom. And it didn't go so great with my sister, because this lady, Mrs. Olson, told her that she was going to be a psychic and a healer. And my sister just wanted to have like 1,000 kids, she didn't want to be a psychic. So she was a little depressed about it. But my mom was like, it was like empowering to her. It was something struck a nerve with her. I think she felt a connection to it. And so she got into this stuff. And me being the youngest, I just kind of had to go along with it, because a lot of times when she would go, like I said, back then it's the 60s, psychics are kind of underground. And if they aren't, they're in mental institutions, they're not stable people. And so they had to have these, you'd have to go to these churches in the basement and stuff where they would gather. And then they started to come to our house, because my mom found this church. And like I said, it was in the basement. It was, a lot of weird people. They all smell, but they started hanging out at our house because it was a nice house. It had heating, and my mom was really into it. She liked to feed everybody. So I grew up with psychics, people that were trying to learn how to be psychic, hanging out at the house all the time. And the weird stuff. There's a ton of stuff after that, but that's how I learned about it. Now, the psychic stuff, I didn't know about being psychic. When I was a kid, I always saw colors around people, and I thought everybody saw colors around people. I just thought it was natural. I did. I thought everybody could do that, and I could tell something was going to happen before it was happening. Or like when my sister was I was probably 4 or 5, and my sister went horseback riding with my mom, and an ambulance went flying by on the highway down the street from us, and I knew my sister and my mom were in that ambulance. I just knew it, but I thought everybody knew that. I thought everybody just knew that. My sister had fallen on the horse and had to go to the hospital. But stuff like that, it wasn't like I got a thunderbolt like, you are psychic, yo. It was just, it was like this natural thing, it was like this thing. And I certainly didn't want to do it. I didn't, I still wonder if I want to do it. But I didn't embrace it. I wasn't like, God, I can't wait to be Karnak. This is the best thing I could think of, I noticed what it was because these teachers were telling me, oh yeah, you see auras. That's what it is. And I was like, shut up. Everybody can see that. And they were like, no, not everybody. And I didn't want to be psychic. I didn't want to have that sort of stuff. So anyway, so to answer your question, there wasn't really a time. It was just an understanding that I already had this kind of stuff and that other people in my family had it. And but the first time we ever had an experience was when I was 7. And then it went to hell after that.
It just snowballed from that point on.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah. But, I'm part of me's glad, but part of me just misses that whole, that simplicity of not knowing, that simplicity of just being in denial. I love denial. It's like my favorite place. And, and it was just, I miss that sometimes of just thinking, oh yeah, ghost. Yeah. Whatever. Stupid. I miss that because it was all about the cars you drove or the car or the job you had or the clothes or the money, simple stuff, and now it's all about life has meaning and everything has purpose and blah, 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 blah. I miss that shallow pool. So when I talk to skeptics, I like that because I can feel their stupid vibe and it makes me feel good again. It's like, oh yeah, I remember a feeling like that. And so I don't mind skeptics, they always come, so if I'm psychic, what am I eating? That kind of stuff. I don't mind that. And I appreciate it because I certainly wasn't a believer from the beginning.
Now, how much has the landscape changed in people reaching out, people taking it seriously, and people actually applying what they hear to their own lives in what you've seen, Michael?
Holy crap. It's nuts. It's like you can't spit without hitting a psychic these days. Everywhere there's a psychic. And when we were kids, when I was a kid, the old psychics told us about this time. They said that, psychics are going to get really popular and there's going to be a lot of people becoming in, the dawn of Aquarius and all that kind of stuff. And that we had to be careful because some of us were going to get, kind of nutty. Like, what happened with the church people, how they kind of, the evangelists kind of got really greedy and just kind of were lying and all that stuff. That was going to possibly happen to psychics, that we were going to turn into divas and we were going to, this and that. And so we had to be very careful. And so it's reassuring in some ways to see all these psychic people, but it's kind of nerve wracking at the same time. Cause then I remember what they said, about then we were going to have to go back to underground. But no, man, there's psychics. Everybody's a psychic. I swear to God. I mean, they're not good, but I mean, there's a lot of everywhere you go. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I wrote the second book was because, I don't think I'm the best psychic in the world. I really don't. And kind of, I don't know, sometimes I suck, but sometimes I'm okay. And there's a lot of people out there that just think that they master things or they know everything. And, that's like the basic rule about psychic stuff is that the more you know, the less you know, it's really not about the psychic. It's about the message. It's about like, I have certain opinions about things and I'm a little opinionated about stuff. So that's kind of my filter, I say things, I try to be as blunt as I can be. And then there's other people like my mom, who's like was really sweet. She could tell you have cancer and you'd feel good about it. She was so kind and so sweet. And it's really about the message and how it's delivered. It's not about the psychic. And but nowadays it seems to be about the psychic, and it's just like so stupid. It's because psychics aren't always right, and actually it's supposed to be about trusting your own intuition, like your own instincts. And you don't need a stupid psychic to go to. I mean, you can learn from a psychic, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to trust that little inner voice thing, because we all have it. We just have it in different degrees. So yeah, to answer your question, it's like nuts. It's crazy. And it's comforting, like I said, in some ways, and it's also unnerving in some ways.
Now, how have the requests changed over the last 12 months, or have they?
Yeah, the last 12 months have been just nutty because people like distractions, and so do I. And so when they have work or they have to go places, it's great because they can get distracted. They don't have to think about stuff. Well, now they're all stuck in and they're all thinking about their mortality and dying and stuff. And now, so the requests have changed in the sense that there's more meaning to them. Like instead of, am I going to get that car? It's more like, is my soul going to evolve? Am I a good person. There's just a little more meaning to the questions because people are kind of facing things a little bit more. They're kind of stuck. And not everybody's facing them. A lot of people are just turning into trolls. But it seems to be where there's more depth to what people want to know about these days. It has life is looking a little different to people nowadays. Yeah.
Now, for you, as you've got 45 years plus under your belt as a psychic, for you, has it gotten easier, the process, or is it still, you still have to treat the process the same way?
No, every time I do a reading, I get nervous. And I've done like thousands and thousands of readings, but I get nervous because, like, if you suck at your job, people talk about it. They let you know. I'm like a future guy. So, and there's people that find keys or find bodies or talk to your dead relatives and stuff like that. I don't do any of that stupid stuff. I just don't. But they're good at it. Some of them are. But my stuff is the future because I see opportunities coming up for people, and hopefully, I guess whether or not they're going to take the opportunity or not. But not they don't always do that. And like if I'm wrong, people yell at you. They go, "Hey, psychic boy, what happened to my relationship that was supposed to come down the pike on Thursday or whatever?" And so I get nervous about not being right about stuff. Not it's still it. No, it's never. There was a time when I was a kid, like when I was in my early 20s, and I was feeling pretty cocky about things, and it was just easy. I was getting all this information, and it was easy. And I was. I think back then it was much easier because I had that confidence. But then it was taken away because I was such a diva that it was taken away from me, and in a real public way. And after that, I've been like nervous of making sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's and all that stuff. Make sure that I double check stuff, like because you could be right about 10 people, but if you're wrong about one person, it just ruins your week. It just you just feel like you're an idiot. And there's nothing worse than doing a reading for somebody when they're talking to you like, "Yee, I don't think you have a clue about what you're talking about," and that happens.
A lot of folks have different reasonings of going to psychics as well. What is an acceptable reason in your mind?
Oh my God. People ask everything. I mean, everything. They will ask what, if it's okay if they buy this kind of toothpaste. That's kind of stupid, but they do. People ask about whether they're going to die. That happens a lot. Mostly what people ask about is work. Like they hate their job. They can't stand one more day. They're going to go postal, and they want to know whether there's another job coming. So a lot of people want to know about their relationship. Relationships are tricky because sometimes they want to know if the person's being unfaithful or if they love them and all that stuff. And that's a little gray area. That's kind of gray because, I've had people come to me and they asked me, especially when I was younger, whether they thought their boyfriend or girlfriend was cheating on them. And then if I say, "Well, yeah, I kind of think so," then they go to the person and they say, "Hey, I talked to the psychic and they said you're cheating on them." And, that's not good because then the person calls you up and yells at you and it's embarrassing. But people still ask that from time to time. But mostly now, like I said, it's more about deeper things about what's the purpose of this and what's the purpose of that. It's what's I don't even know what's unacceptable to ask me because people have asked me all sorts of strange stuff. I mean, strange stuff. And, even their spirit guides are rolling their eyes, all right. So that's a good question. I don't even know the answer to that one. I think any questions, some of them are stupid. Like, I don't know what kind of toothpaste you should buy, but I guess any kind of question's okay. The more direct the question, like the more specific the question, the more specific the answer. Some people want to know, like, well, what's the meaning of life, man? And stuff like that. It's kind of stupid. But yeah, no, I think any question is pretty acceptable.
Now, from the books that you wrote, was that an extra challenge that you didn't see coming, or was it something that you had in the works that you were completed with before you brought it to somebody?
Well, okay, so for me to write a book, I got 80, whatever it's called, attention deficit so bad, like I'm just struggling to get through this conversation. If I see a squirrel, we're done, So it's for me to write a book, it's really tough. And I'm not a writer. Anybody that reads my books will see I'm not exactly Hemingway, but I tell a story. And the first one was, it started out by, I was doing readings. I do a lot of people in the entertainment field, which doesn't make me a great psychic, by the way, or makes me more interesting, because every Hollywood person has a psychic, and some of them have 3 or 4. So it doesn't make you special if you talk to an actor out there. It really doesn't. It's just part of the job, especially with what I do, because it fits with what I do. But I do a lot of actors out. People always ask me, so who do you do? Who do you do? It's like that makes a difference. Who cares? Most of them are kind of jerks, and some of them are great, but they're not the most deepest people in the world. Some of them are, but doesn't make you a great psychic if you talk to people in the business. But anyway, my point is, I was doing a couple actors, and they happened to be working on a film together, and this producer, and they found out that they were both talking to me because they were talking about this psychic, and they said his name is Michael. Oh, this guy's Michael. He's from Minneapolis. Hey, I wonder if it's the same guy. Blah blah blah. And they were talking about the stuff that was happening. And the producer on this film happened to be from Minneapolis, and he says, "Who the hell is this guy?" And he found out my name, and he contacted me. He goes, "So how in the hell were you able to talk to these guys? And how long have you been doing this stuff?" And I kind of joked with him. I was giving him crap a little bit. And so we got along really well, this producer, because he didn't really believe in psychics, and I don't really believe in producers. So we got along just great. And so he asked me to write how I got into this thing. So I wrote him the story about my brother and the drums. And he really liked it. He says, "God, you got more stuff?" And I said, "Well, yeah." So I kept writing him stuff about how it happened. And then they said, "Hey, let's make this into a movie." So they decided, they got a couple other producers involved, and we got a showrunner and did all that stuff. But in the meantime, I just kept writing on more and more stuff. And it, as things happen in Hollywood, everything went to hell. I mean, we got close a whole bunch of times with the movie and the book, and with the show and all that stuff. But eventually it just went to hell. And then, but I had this book at the end. I had this manuscript, and I brought it to a publisher, and they said, "Hey, we'll publish it." So that's how I got my first thing done. It wasn't meant to be a book. And the second book was really just because people kept coming up to me, and after I did the first book, because I like to be underground, I don't like the whole social stuff. I just don't. It gives me the creeps. And so now people were coming to me and going, "Hey, how big is your third eye?" and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, shut up, So that's why I wrote the second book. I was just kind of sick of the whole, my third eye is bigger than your third eye kind of thing. And so it was more in retort to all that stuff that I was getting the backlash from the first book, because I'm not into, I like the smell of patchouli, but I don't like to wear it. And sorry, that's my dog. And I just, the second book was just, I just wanted to explain some of where I was at with some stuff, and that the fact that not everybody needs a reading. And in fact, the second book was supposed to be called 7 Reasons Why Not to Get a Reading, but the publishers didn't like it. So we had to go to the psychic's life, which is stupid if you ask me.
So you believe in a publisher, but not a producer. I got you.
Right. Exactly.
Now being a bit hard-headed and ADHD as you are, how was the dealing with a publisher and editor and stuff like that?
Oh my God. Well, thank God they're smarter than me, because they recognize that I'm semi-retarded in most areas. And so they would walk me through things. They would just talk to me nice and slow. And and they would say, okay, do this and do that. Send us this, send us that. And so, I had luck with my editors. They were great editors, and they didn't change a lot of stuff. The publisher was Llewellyn. The first book was Llewellyn, which is local up here. And then the second one, I was going to go out. There was a place out west there that I was going to go to, but eventually I got a better deal with my old publisher, Llewellyn. So they were great. They were really nice. Not really good with publicity, but they were very helpful with getting the thing done.
How has the way everything's had to shift this last year, how has that changed how you're going to do your thing in the future as we move forward? Does your process change? Are you doing the more remote things? Is that kind of stuff going to stay, or
No, you know what? That's great. I love this. I've seen one person, and now, don't get me wrong. I like people. But it's so great to just be able to, it's so much better to talk to people on the phone because you don't get their visual cues. You don't, some people get all animated and stuff like that. And this way it's just a blank slate, and it's kind of nerve-wracking. I mean, it kind of gets you excited because you could really suck and you wouldn't know it until afterwards when they go, yeah, that sucked, because you can't see anything. You're just talking to a person, or the Zoom stuff is okay, but I like it. I like it. I would rather not. I'd like to keep going like this, just doing it on the phone. My sister does her stuff on the phone, and but I like it. I haven't seen like one person in a year. It's great. I mean,
something you like about it.
Yeah, no, I like it, and if you're talking to like a Hollywood guy, like a big dog actor or something like that, and you're looking at him, you're thinking, holy crap, I'm talking to so-and-so, this is, I loved him in this and that. But if you're just talking to him on the phone, it's like, it's not a big deal. It makes it so much easier, really. Because, yeah.
Now, Michael, I know that you've got an amazing list of folks that you deal with. And if folks are looking for a psychic, is there, I know there's not like a Better Business Bureau for psychics, but is there a way to actually search out and find a respected psychic, if you will?
Well, see, the best way, the old fashioned way of us talking to a psychic it was all supposed to be very organic. Like, if you're thinking about going to a psychic, you'd put out some feelers. You don't go to some place where they're, like, generally speaking, psychics aren't supposed to advertise. I know there's some different trains of thought there, and then I argue with people and we end up punching each other. But in my mind, I think that you're not supposed to advertise. You're just supposed to organically allow it to happen. And people will get a good feeling about whether you're supposed to talk. Like, hopefully you get a referral. Because that's how I get all my stuff, is by referral. Because if I suck, they're going to tell people, Jesus, I went to this guy and he sucked. And so they're not going to call me. But if I got lucky with somebody, they're going to say, hey, this guy, said this and said that. And they're going to call. And hopefully I'll get lucky with that person. But it's all supposed to be organic. And you're supposed to get referrals from a friend. And if, like, you're living in like some rural town or something like that, and there's like 3 people and you don't know, God, that's a good question. Well, in theory, psychics are supposed to share. Like, there's some people that call me that I know I'm not a good fit for, because
right.
I'm kind of a dick sometimes, and I know I say things that I swear, and I'm not for everybody. And but I know that there's other psychics that are really kind and that are a lot more kumbaya than I am, and so I like referring people to other psychics. Not all psychics do that, but you're supposed to. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to, because not everybody's made for everybody. It's just not. We're all different. So I think referral from other psychics is helpful too, because there's some good psychics. There's some really sucky ones too, but there's some good psychics out there, and I like referring people to them because it makes me look good too. But so to answer your question, usually I think you're supposed to trust your gut. You're supposed to get a referral from somebody that's already talked to somebody. They have they have these contests. Who's the best psychic in this city or that city? And those are so stupid. I can't even tell you because not like every psychic is different with everybody, and I dealt with psychics that have said, I won the best psychic of Orange County or something like that, and I just think, what the hell? That's that. Generally, try to avoid the people that are the best psychic of that county because that means that they're kissing everybody's ass. They're just telling them what they want to hear, and not that. There's, like I say, you got to trust your little intuition on that stuff, but it's jeez.
You mentioned the best of county, and all I can think of is thinking of a psychic competition that's like evolved from a Quidditch match from Harry Potter or something.
Exactly. You're all sitting there staring at each other like, yeah. What did you see about that? I saw that first. That kind of thing.
You didn't make that. We blocked.
Exactly. And I think that happens with, like, I've done, other interviews with other psychics, and we're all just kind of jockeying for position. Yeah. But and it doesn't matter how long the psychic's been doing it either. It doesn't, because I'm a little jaded, and a little bitter and and a little patient. And some of these other psychics who are really good, they're, they just, maybe they haven't been doing it as long, but they care, they actually care, which is something I don't. So, it doesn't matter necessarily how long the person's been doing readings. There's a lot of good young psychics out there. There really are, because they have this whole, they're into it, man. They're into it. And I appreciate that. I just lost that in the 60s, I think.
Now, Michael, if folks want to find either of your books or any more information, where's the best place to find information about the books and everything else?
Well, the first book, God, good luck with that one. That one, I like that one. That explains the whole, it's a humorous way of, growing up in a psychic family. God, I can't, but it's hard to find. So we're talking about doing a Netflix thing, based on the first book. So if that does happen, then I get to republish my first book, which is good, because then I'll have it. And the second one still, you can find it just about anywhere, but you can get them on Amazon. You can get them on just about anywhere. But the first book's a little harder to find. With me, I just got my little stupid website thing. It's not that great, but I mean, it's just not that bad either. It's just stupid. It's just a website. I don't know what to tell you. I'm supposed to be more into it. I gotta work on that stuff.
Well, Mike, I tell you, I really appreciate you taking some time today, man. Hopefully,
well, thanks for talking to me. It was great. You have such a nice little thing to you, this little vibe to you. You're very easy to talk to.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully we can do this again real soon.
I would love that. Yes, I would love that.
Well, thanks again for joining me for this 68th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, question, or anything else you'd like to know, you can hit me up on the contact page at gqwithcam.com. You can also find me on the socials on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at gqwithcam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, you can visit the merch store. Got hoodies, tumblers, shirts, mugs, stickers, and more at gqwithcam.com/shop. And if you have a special guest idea, email me gqwithcam@gmail.com. Well, again, thanks to our good friend Brandon Allen for coming up with our theme music. We're going to let him play us out and hope you guys have a great weekend.